Why, Mr. Bennett. Yeah, I saved all your mail for you.
Thanks. I'll pick it up on my way out. Oh, Dale. Here you're going to be around here for a while. You better check your sources.
Hello, Mr. Bennett. You can go right in. Mr. Craig's expecting you.
Thanks. Well, Dale, glad to see you. Have a good vacation?
Wonderful.
Fine, fine. Sit down. Here, have a cigar.
No, thanks.
Well, now, the last time I saw you, you were a pretty angry guy.
I sure was. I was ready to quit.
That's what I thought.
How would you feel if you were me? I'd worked hard enough to get into that Paris office, and I'd worked hard to get good news sources in Europe. I was all set. Then you pull me back here.
For your own good. Because you'd forgotten to be a reporter. You were writing editorials, not news stories. We want to know what other people think. That's why I told you to take a vacation. You needed to get back to the grassroots. Get a little closer to people. What have you got there?
This is my vacation, in pictures. That's really what I want to talk to you about. I want you to have first crack at it.
Shoot.
Okay. You told me to take a vacation and think it over. When I left here, I just threw some camping gear into a station wagon and took off for nowhere. A few miles out of the city, I got an idea. There was Lake Michigan, looking cool and inviting. I thought, why not? And man, that old lake felt good. I was a new man when I came out. Got to watching a beach car scooting along. And then I stumbled right into something really attractive.
Well, hello.
Let go of me. Why don't you look where you're going?
Gee, I'm sorry.
Clumsy. Look what you've done.
It was almost finished.
Oh, well, here, let me help you.
Don't touch it. Haven't you any sense at all? Just go away, please.
You know, you're mighty purty when you're mad.
She was plenty mad. I tried to think of some way to make things right, but no luck. Oh, well. As I drove north, I couldn't get that gal out of my mind. Then at a town along the way, I stopped to get some gas and maybe learn something about the local scenic spots. A funny thing happened. I guess I had luck on my side, because right there was the same painting of the lake and the dunes. Where'd you get that?
I just bought it. You think it's any good?
Yeah.
I kind of liked it. Maybe I just like the gal who painted it. Gee, she was pretty.
Say, how about selling that to me?
It's more than I paid for it. Okay, it's all yours. Do you know her?
No, but I'd like to.
Kind of interesting. Driving around with her father in an old car and trailer. They just left here about a half hour ago.
Which way'd they go?
Going north.
Thanks. So am I. So I started to keep an eye out for a car with a trailer. And a few miles up the road, there they were. Obviously in some kind of trouble. I stopped. But of course I would have stopped anyway, because there was the same gal up on a nearby hillside.
Hello, young fella. Want to buy a painting?
No, thanks.
Game of cribbage?
No.
A lot of people play cribbage, end up buying a painting. Whole back end's full of them. Know anything about engines?
Some. What seems to be the trouble?
Have a look. If it isn't one thing, it's another. Engines, brakes. Here, I'll show you. Doggone battery.
Better let me give you a push.
Hope you would. Just wanted to say thank you.
Not at all. But I'd do something about that car of yours if I were you. I don't think it's safe.
She's all we had. I have to make her last.
Well. Hey, look! It's moving! I never felt so sorry for any two people in my life. Her name was Connie. Her father was retired on a little pension, and she managed to sell enough paintings to just keep going. And then the whole thing went up in smoke.
What did you do?
I had a car. Wasn't going anywhere. What could I do? So I hooked my station wagon to their trailer, and we drove off together. And frankly, I wasn't at all sorry to do it. My vacation was turning out a lot better than I'd expected. What Connie felt, she kept to herself. And her dad? Well, it was hard to tell what he thought, too. We headed for Interlaken, pulled into a pretty grove of pines, and made ourselves comfortable. Then I heard music. Hundreds of youngsters come to Interlaken every summer. Come from all over the country to play, sing, dance, and study. It's a wonderful spot.
Well, I think I'll see if I can turn up a game of cribbage.
Anything I can do?
No, thanks. You know, it's awfully nice of you to pull us around, but I don't feel right about it.
Ah, it's about time I got around to seeing the Middle West anyway.
I just love it. For years, I've wanted to travel around and paint these beautiful scenes. Ted thinks I'm a little foolish.
Ted? Who's he?
Ted Newell. We've known each other since kindergarten. He thinks I ought to give it up.
Mm-hmm. Get married? Settle down?
I'm not ready to give up yet. Maybe he's right. My paintings don't sell very well.
Oh, don't let that bother you, baby. Well, think of all the great painters that had to die before their stuff began to sell. Take Cézanne, Gauguin, Van Gogh.
Sometimes I think 2 years in Paris can make people awfully patronizing.
Uh-oh. The things there are to see in this Middle West. Spring Mill State Park in Indiana takes you back. There's an old water wheel there, still running just as it did when our forefathers built it more than 100 years ago. Everybody seemed to be in a holiday mood. We drove over to New Salem in Illinois, where Abraham Lincoln lived as a young man. The old log buildings have been carefully restored as a monument to his memory.
I don't know about you, but a place like this makes me feel a shadow of history.
Yeah, I get a whale of a kick out of places like this.
You bet. A mighty big chunk of history got started right here. From rail splitter to president. But life must have been pretty rough in those days. How'd you like to travel around behind a pair of oxen?
We swung west to the Mississippi and turned north. We were looking at some barges and a river tug when Dad summed it up.
Once upon a time, these rivers were our only highways. Today, we have highways all over the country. We drive our own cars. We get on a train, a plane, go from one end of the country to another. And nobody says we can't.
Farther up the river, we crossed the bridge that leads into Hannibal, Missouri, Mark Twain's hometown. The whole world has come to know and love it through his books. You can still see settings that come to life in his books, like Mark Twain's home and Tom Sawyer's famous white fence. Not far away is a statue to Tom and his friend Huck Finn, the first statue ever put up in America to people out of a book. From there, we rolled across Missouri to Kansas City, where we saw one of the most beautiful war memorials in this country. From there, you get a fine view of the city itself. Talk about handsome buildings. You ought to see the state capitol at Lincoln, right in the corn belt of Nebraska. And then Kansas. We stopped in Dodge City to see famous old Boot Hill. They really died with their boots on in those days. Nearby is a monument to the frontier days, a couple of longhorns, which reminded us how much progress we've made in beef cattle. Oklahoma City's something entirely different. You just look around and you can see oil derricks, right up on the lawn of the state capitol. The first we saw of the Rocky Mountains was the summit of Pikes Peak, way off in the distance.
You don't realize how big this country is till you get around and see it.
Then we left the plains and began climbing up into Rocky Mountain National Park. There are plenty of mountains, all right. You keep climbing higher and higher. For miles on Trail Ridge Road, you can actually see the timberline below you. You're riding right on the top of the world. Then we got into the Grand Teton country of Wyoming.